The City of Newton's Zoning and Planning Committee has ended Phase 3 of its Village Center Rezoning, including draft zoning district maps and draft zoning ordinance text. In 2020, the Zoning and Planning Committee, along with the Department of Planning and Development, set its focus on zoning Newton's village centers to help them thrive once again.
Our village centers have been struggling economically for a very long time. Not every village center, but most of them have empty storefronts, high turnover, and a lot of work needs to be done to right the ship.
Righting the ship is a challenge, as each village center is different from one another.
They're different in size and shape, the nature of the boundary, what we see at the boundaries. It could be purely residential, it could be commercial or manufacturing. And so how do we come up with a formula for rezoning the village centers where we can meet those boundaries properly, we can address the fact that all our village centers are different. Our current zoning does not recognize that. It's a one-size-fits-all for every village center, and it's not working.
So the Zoning and Planning Committee asked community members to weigh in on what they thought the village centers should contain and look like.
Some of the main ones included wanting more space for public involvement, public activity, more diverse housing in the village centers, also better accessibility to the buildings, and also transportation in a couple different ways, such as having more types of transportation, as well as just ease to get within and to the village centers.
With that community input, 3 different village center zoning districts were created.
If we have a small zone that allows 2.5 stories by right, that would be the boundary zone to the residential areas. If we have a medium-sized zone that allows 3.5 stories by right and a certain maximum size building, that would be more or less the next tier. And then the densest district we came up with was to allow 4.5 stories by right and a larger footprint. And the 2 denser districts would be mixed use. And the transition district would be primarily residential.
The draft maps version 1.0 display at City Hall has come down, and all input will be gathered together and presented to the Zoning and Planning Committee starting in January. There will also be public comment by city boards and commissions and community groups.
January 9th and January 23rd are regularly scheduled meetings in 2023. And we're going to have conversations with the committee and these groups so that we can do it in public and also so that we can all hear each other at the same time.
There are normally 2 meetings per month for the Zoning and Planning Committee. Councilor Crossley believes the Planning Department and the Zoning and Planning Committee can put out a 2.0 version in March.
It is fairly ambitious, and we'll be continuing to discuss that iteration, March, April. In my dreams, we will come to consensus roughly by May and be able to have public hearings on a product that the committee feels is finished, or a final draft, if you will, because we still deliberate after a public hearing. So maybe the public hearings could be end of May, sometime in June. That kind of, we're roughing out that schedule. It's very rough as of now.
Councilor Crossley encourages all to participate now, as the finer details will start to become the focus for the final draft. This also includes adding in the new regulation from the state regarding the MBTA Communities Law sometime during 2023.
We have to create zoning that will allow by right a certain minimum number of housing units. We don't build them, but we have to allow them by right. And in Newton, that has to be 25% of the existing housing units that we have to allow to happen. And that's 8,330 units. And it has to be within a certain proximity. 90% of it has to be within a half mile of the rapid transit stations, Green Line, commuter rail. So we have to layer that puzzle on top of this, but we're going to do this first because this is what we need to do for ourselves in the city of Newton in order to help get the right mix in our village centers.
You can find out more information about the Village Center zoning online at the city's website, newtonma.gov/government/planning/village centers. Jen Adams, Newton News, Newton Center.